There were a lot of surprising moments throughout the Codename Kids Next Door series, but I don't think anything was as shocking as learning what happened to Numbuh 4 at the end of the finale. The one that blew my mind the most was when we learned what happened to Wallabee Beatles, aka Numbuh 4. While it's no surprise that the rest of the kids went on to live successful and seemingly happy lives, I never expected Numbuh 4 to arguably be the most successful out of all of them, at least on paper. I mean, can you believe that he went to Harvard? First off, it's important that I address the elephant in the room. Yes, according to the finale of Codename Kids Next Door, Numbuh 4 attended Harvard and apparently became a doctor. The only time this was ever mentioned was in the movie Operation Interviews, and it was through a very strange live-action version of the character. During the movie, which acted as the series finale, there were moments where fans got to see what Numbuhs 2 through 5 were like as live-action adults through interviews. It was really weird to see, but as a kid, I just kind of went with it. During one of Numbuh 4's segments, he compared a moment in the movie to a moment from his second year at med school. As if it wasn't crazy enough for him to mention that he went to medical school, the character continued by saying, "at Harvard." That's right, it's officially canon that as an adult, Numbuh 4 would become a Harvard graduate and a doctor. That's crazy when you think about it, but just exactly how did someone as outwardly dim-witted as Numbuh 4 make it into such a reputable school? The first theory that some fans on Reddit have come up with involved Numbuh 4's relationship status by the end of the series. In the TV movie special Operation Interviews, aka the series finale for the Kids Next Door, fans got a brief look at what the future held for the remaining 4 members of Sector V. At the very end of the movie, we got to see what really happened to the beloved members of the Kids Next Door, and believe it or not, all of these childhood friends ended up marrying each other. In what's considered to be canon, Numbuh 5 and Numbuh 2 ended up together, and, as I always hoped, Numbuh 3 and Numbuh 4 wound up marrying each other. Even if this wasn't how it ended, it would definitely be my hope that Kooky and Wallabee ended up together. I mean, those kids loved each other. What's even more important though is the fact that Numbuh 4 starting a relationship with Numbuh 3 might have been the very reason he was able to get into Harvard in the first place. All throughout the series, Numbuh 4 was considered to be an airhead and easily the least intelligent member of Sector V. I mean, it was a long-running gag in the show that his character didn't even know how to spell, let alone count from 1 to 4. This is kind of why it was so shocking to see that a kid like Numbuh 4, who preferred to let his fist do the talking, made it into an Ivy League school like Harvard. Well, according to this theory, none of that would have been possible had he not been motivated by his relationship with Kooky. First off, everyone knows that Numbuh 4 would have done anything for Numbuh 3, including fighting off the delightful children from down the lane for trying to kiss her as he did in Operation Love. That's why this theory suggests that upon realizing he had feelings for Numbuh 3, Wallabee Beatles decided to turn his life around, academically speaking. According to this theory, the pair likely started dating sometime in high school, and as the relationship grew, so did Numbuh 4's concerns. As most young adults will tell you, there is nothing more terrifying than realizing you don't know how you're going to support yourself, let alone another person. There's a chance that Numbuh 4 realized that he needed to help Numbuh 3 get the life that she deserved when she was older. The theory suggests that this realization led Numbuh 4 to take school much more seriously, and because of that, he began studying harder and actually started trying his best. As you know, Numbuh 4 had uber determination when he set his mind on something, which means that studying harder shouldn't have been a problem for him. Now, if you're questioning the odds of a character like Numbuh 4 being able to flip-flop his attitude towards school like that, then I need to remind you of what we learned in Operation Safety. All throughout the episode, Numbuh 4 was shown struggling at the sight of blood, all the way until the end of the episode where he outright fainted after seeing that he skinned his knee, causing it to bleed a bit. This means that at the time of the episode, which was set during Season 6 of the show, Numbuh 4 was afraid of blood. Now flash forward to the live-action segments of Operation Interviews, when we learned that Numbuh 4 had become a doctor after attending Harvard. The only way that Numbuh 4 could have become a doctor was if he managed to overcome his fear of blood. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to deal with most of his patients on a day-to-day basis. This proves that Numbuh 4 is potentially really good at getting over his shortcomings, and even becoming comfortable doing something that he hated so much, like blood or school. In other words, it's entirely plausible for this theory that Numbuh 4 simply pushed himself to be a better student because he wanted to prove he was good enough for Numbuh 3. Getting his grades up through the power of love like he was Sailor Moon or something wasn't the only way that Numbuh 4 may have worked his way into Harvard, though. Would you believe me if I told you that he might not have had to change at all, and he still would have been a likely candidate for the Ivy League school? According to this next theory, which is backed by a lot of evidence from the show, Numbuh 4 might have had more potential than anyone realized, intellectually speaking. You see, when it comes down to it, Wallabee Beatles may have been the most resourceful member of Sector V, and it was constantly underrated just how clever he actually was. For instance, in the episode Operation Movie, Numbuh 4 single-handedly outsmarts almost every villain that Kids Next Door has ever faced, all just to get into an R-rated movie. There was even a moment in Operation Mission where Numbuh 4, the supposedly least intelligent member of the team, tricked a group of villains into working for him. It's clear that he was capable of thinking on his feet and using his street smarts to outwit his enemies, and according to this theory, once he actually applied that to his education, he began to strive. Numbuh 4 was actually a super smart character, despite the fact that he couldn't spell or count properly. On top of that, he never let his lack of intelligence slow him down at all, or affect him emotionally. Instead, he continued to face his enemies head-on and always came out on top. Well, according to this theory, once he realized that he was smarter than he was given credit for, Numbuh 4 started to apply himself in class, picked his grades up, and eventually paved the way for him to get into Harvard. Interestingly enough, though, there is one more way that Wallabee Beatles could have gotten accepted into Harvard, and it would have actually been by doing something that fans know he loved. What's the one sport that could properly utilize Numbuh 4's aggression and strength the most? Wrestling. Numbuh 4 would have made an excellent wrestler in school, and if he applied himself to the sport, it could have become the very reason that he got into Harvard in the first place. In fact, that's exactly what this third theory is all about. According to some fans, it only makes sense that Numbuh 4 would make it into Harvard through some sort of scholarship program. Then, when you consider his current position in school throughout the series, you'll realize that there's a very good chance that the scholarship would have come from a sport rather than academics. Well, after rewatching the series for what had to be the 10th time or more, you realize that there was almost no one that could match Numbuh 4 in a fight. His role in Sector V of the Kids Next Door was to be their hand-to-hand combat specialist, meaning that he was likely the best fighter in his sector. On top of that, we know that Numbuh 4 was a huge fan of sports. We saw that in Operation Dodgeball as he expressed his love and skill at the game, and then again in Operation Matador when he was happy to participate in bully fighting. This was a new sport that involved bullies getting adults hyped up on coffee and then using them as bulls. Numbuh 4 loved the sport, even though the rest of his team found it unethical. Numbuh 4's love for sports in general, plus his natural athleticism and strength, would make him the perfect student to sign up for a school sport, and according to this theory, he'd find a solid spot on the wrestling team. The theory goes on to suggest that Numbuh 4 did so well on the wrestling team that he even managed to earn himself a college scholarship to Harvard, where he continued to enjoy the sport. However, in college, you can't necessarily major in a sport, which is why Numbuh 4 began to study medicine and became a doctor. Whether it's because of this theory or not, though, according to the show, Numbuh 4 clearly grew up to be a successful and intelligent adult, which is something that I never saw coming as a kid. I'm curious what you think about it though. How did Numbuh 4 end up at Harvard and become a doctor? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.